Johnny Skidmarks is a 1998 release neo-noir directed by John Raffo.
Peter Gallagher plays Johnny Scardino, who's nicknamed Johnny Skidpants. Is that right? No, Skidmarks. Damn it. For God's sake. Oh, why have I said Skidpants? That's not even a thing. Skidpants. Oh my God. Right.
Johnny Skidmarks is a 1998 neo-noir directed by John Raffo.
Peter Gallagher plays Johnny Scardino, who's nicknamed Johnny Skidmarks. Let's put a clip. So no sniggering at the back at that hilarious name. He's a crime scene photographer, sort of freelance, so he photographs murders and car accidents and things like that, which I think is kind of where he gets the nickname from. You know, the opening shot is some skid marks on the road. Pretty tenuous, but there you go. And I guess his name kind of sounds like Skidmarks, starts with a sk sound.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Anyway, so on the side, obviously he works with the police and insurance companies doing that job. But on the side, he's got a little bit of a side hustle with some blackmailers who like to kind of a honey trap, I suppose, isn't it, with a prostitute and a rich guy, and they burst into the hotel room and you know, photograph them in compromising positions. It's never made clear whether the men are actively seeking out prostitutes or whether the prostitutes are like, oh, come back to my hotel room. Or, don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, they end up in bed. They're being, you know, cheating on their wives or whatever. Yeah, they blackmail them with these photos they take. However, his blackmailing partners suddenly start to die. So first the prostitute is killed in a big motorway pile-up. So it's not clear whether that's just a coincidence and an accident. But then somebody else dies and then somebody else. So it's obvious that the last person they try to blackmail is perhaps trying to get revenge and kill them all off. And in the background we've got John Lithgow as a police detective who obviously is at a lot of these crime scenes, including ones of the people that Johnny knows, but he doesn't let on obviously because it's a legal activity that he's partaking in. And he's got his brother-in-law. We learn that his wife died a few years previously and his brother-in-law owns a burger restaurant called Happy Burger, that's it. Oh no, it's a Clown Burger, but the burger's called a Happy Burger.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't really matter. He's played by Jack Black, and the restaurant is always empty, apart from Johnny, and a woman who comes in randomly, played by Frances McDormand, and they sort of strike up a relationship. They're both kind of miserable. You know, she's an alcoholic. I think maybe he has previously been an alcoholic, and he's a bit depressed because, his job isn't particularly nice. Yeah, and obviously he lost his wife as well. But yeah, he kind of is a bit miserable. He's very detached from the work that he does. Obviously he sees a lot of dead bodies and he kind of just, you know, it gets brought up a few times, you know, don't you feel anything about, you know, for these people? Oh no, I don't, you know, I don't pay any attention to it. And there's a scene where he's asked, you know, that he's a photography place where he's getting the photos printed, and the guy, was this a drunk driver? And he goes, oh yeah, I don't know, maybe. So he doesn't really take any interest in the things he's actually photographing. He just takes the photos and moves on. But yeah, obviously he takes an interest once his blackmailing mates get bumped off. Who's doing it? And is he going to be next?
Indeed. So there is a reason we are doing this film. You want to
talk
about that?
So we got a comment on Truth or Consequences, NM, which we did, I don't know, a couple of years ago maybe. But yeah, one of our viewers added a comment, so thank you very much, suggesting this. I'd never heard of it.
I'd never heard of it either.
And I had to look it up immediately. I was like, that can't be a real name for a film. It can't be. But nope, there it was. And then I saw it was on Amazon Prime and I could watch it for free. So I was like, well, I've got to watch it now, haven't I? So
yeah. And so we did.
Yes.
And here we are talking about it. So Johnny Skidmarks. It was interesting because I thought, you know, recently we've done a few films where I think I've mentioned that, you know, had it not been for the cast, those films possibly wouldn't have worked so well. You know, they had such strong casts. They held it together and they made it work. And I think there are often films where, you know, they're maybe not so that good, but you put a really good strong cast in there and they kind of hold it together and they make it somewhat enjoyable. I mean, this has got a really strong cast, but they don't really do anything with it. It was kind of, I found it was okay.
Yeah.
And that was about it, really.
I was a bit bored, to be honest.
Yeah,
it's only bored. Like 90-something minutes, and it
dragged.
Twice that, yeah. It felt really long for some reason.
I mean, it was... It's kind of a shame because it's quite an interesting idea. It's an interesting premise. I mean, the first thing when you kind of mentioned it and I looked it up, what I thought of was LA Confidential, because of course in that, there is a character who does that. He photographs men in compromising positions with prostitutes. And he's like a paparazzi.
Danny
type.
DeVito, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. So there's no black men, but it's a similar premise. So that was kind of what I was thinking. And in fact, when it started, the first character you get, so he's photographing this accident, and there's someone there, I think the insurance guy, but he's wearing a kind of a trilby, which you assume to be set. So when it first started up, I thought it was like a set in the 1950s,
right?
Because it had a kind of, obviously someone, he wasn't narrating, but you didn't quite see this character. He was talking about it, and he was off camera and talking about it. So it felt a little bit, obviously a lot of old noir films of that period had narration, or films that are made, modern films that set them back there have this kind of narration going on, like LA Confidential. So I thought it was kind of 50s, and then Johnny Skidmarks gets in his car, and I was like, that car's too modern to be a 50s film, and then realised it wasn't a 50s film. But while I was watching it, I kind of thought I wondered whether the filmmakers, the director wanted to make a 1950s noir film, and perhaps for whatever reason didn't.
Well, it's cheaper to set it now.
Well, it's cheaper to set it now, exactly. So for the whole time, I think maybe the film, it kind of felt a little bit out of place, and also didn't really know what it wanted to be.
Well, yeah, I mean, when it started, I thought I'm quite enjoying this vibe because he's quite dour.
Yeah.
There was a bit of black humour in there, and I was like, this seems quite interesting. It's got a strange sort of off-kilter vibe to it, and I was like, yeah, I can get into that. Yeah, that seems good, but it veers away from that and then back to it and then away from it, and like you say, it doesn't really know what it wants to be. And there's some quite, I mean, there's not a lot of violence, I would say, but there's the aftermath of violence. So you see like a dismembered corpse, and there's if you're squeamish about eyes, there's definitely a scene that will get you running behind the sofa, which was quite unexpected. So it's quite. That sort of came out of left field a bit, and it's like, it was very mixed up as to what it exactly wanted to be and the sort of tone that it wanted to have.
There's moments of black humour, but for the most part, it's quite deadpan, I suppose. But then, of course, you bring Jerry, the owner of this burger joint, played by Jack Black, and he is there to kind of give a comic voice. Only there, but that kind of is a bit off-putting at times because it's not like
doesn't really fit, does it?
I mean, Jack Black's great, and he's kind of doing what he kind of then becomes known for, and he's great. But I didn't really laugh too much with it because it felt off in the film,
Oh boy, God, a guy can't get a moment's rest around here.
Yeah, it was an odd model of kind of ideas and things that didn't really go anywhere.
Yeah,
it is gruesome, absolutely. But that too, I found, it wasn't like he was not really a serial killer. Whoever's offering these bodies, but each murder was very wildly different to the one before.
Yeah,
one person gets killed in a car accident, and there's like no gore, and then this other person, which was quite cool actually. This guy's he's literally like lying in a field, and he's had like all his limbs, a bit Dexter-like actually. He's had like all his limbs cut off, but then he's all been put back together a bit like a jigsaw. But there's gaps between his, his legs have been cut off. There's a gap between the leg and then the head and stuff. And it was so wildly different to the one before it, and the one before that.
It is like something out of like Silence of the Lambs or Hannibal or something.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really fit in with this film particularly because it doesn't have that sort of tone to it.
No,
as we said,
it's kind of it kind of 1 minute it's playing it kind of for laughs, kind of the Jack Black stuff maybe, and then it goes very very dark, and then it kind of comes back out and then pulls you back, and it's kind of pulling you around quite a lot, but not in a good way. I mean, there are films that pull you around like that, which can be really effective and really well done. But here, it just felt sloppy, and I kind of found, I mean, it is a really good cast. I mean, you've got Frances McDormand, obviously, Did she win an Oscar for Fargo?
She did, yeah.
So she'd obviously done Fargo and she'd done other films. I mean, I mean, I suppose that it feels a bit Coen-like. It's a
little bit,
you know, Blood Simple. If you think of that film, it feels at times like that. And obviously, having Frances McDormand, of course, she is married to Joel Coen.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, Fargo is quite violent. So, you know, a guy is fed into a wood chipper. You know, there's a lot of blood. But the tone of the film, it doesn't feel out of place.
No, but then of course, you know, a film like Fargo, which had obviously come out before this one, you know, that's directed by two filmmakers who absolutely damn know what they're doing, and they do it very classy, and they're very good at that, and they knew exactly what they were making when they came into it. But this one possibly was like, you know, oh, let's do that, or maybe, I don't know, maybe the producer said, we want another Fargo, we want another Blood Simple, but you know, John Raffo, perfectly, I'm sure he wrote Relic, didn't he?
Yeah.
And he's, you know, written some other things. It's one of those things, isn't it? Obviously, some filmmakers, as they call them, auteurs, absolutely know what they want. They go in, it's all ready. They go in, they get everything, come out, edit it, and they've got the film that they want to make. And if they're really, I'm not, you know, it's one of these things. I don't want to be off at John Raffo because I don't know who he is. But you know, if he's not that kind of auteur filmmaker, and he's kind of having to do what he's being told to do, maybe, then the output at the end of the day is not going to be as good as something like Fargo at all. And Fargo is clearly a very dark, humoured film, which this film kind of feels like it's trying to be at times, but just kind of misses the buck.
I mean, Frances McDormand, just going back to her, I mean, her character almost feels pointless for a lot of the film. You know, because she's quite a dour, miserable person as well. So you've got these two sort of, a bit miserable, and it doesn't make for particularly exciting viewing.
No.
These two sort of dour people having a tedious conversation. Only later in the film is there some sort of connection to the overall plot. But it doesn't really make any difference, and you could have lived without it. So she feels like a bit of a superfluous character.
And I mean, if you think of a film like Leaving Las Vegas, where, I mean, that's kind of similar, isn't it? These two people who come together, you know, but the whole film is about that. So obviously those are interesting characters. But here it's that she's just kind of, you feel like she's just thrown in for a love interest. There is a point in there where you're like, I mean, he starts going through maybe some of the people he's blackmailed, and possibly there's a link there, but well, it doesn't really come to anything. So she doesn't have a lot to do, unfortunately. And she's a great actress, Frances McDormand, but she doesn't really get to act much here.
Not. I mean, John Lithgow's always great, and he's great in this.
And he does seem to be enjoying himself here.
Yeah,
which kind of helps a little bit, I think. But because it feels all thrown together a little bit and is a bit all over the place, it doesn't. Yeah, I just found, like you, I found myself kind of like, if you're waiting for the end in a movie, it's not a great movie.
Yeah, because it sort of keeps you hanging for quite a long time. I don't know, it didn't engage me that much. No, I enjoyed it at the start. I kind of thought, I can get into this. I like the vibe it's got, but it didn't maintain that enough for me. And then it starts introducing characters that don't really serve much purpose.
I mean, is it John Kapelos? He's like the main blackmailer, and he's got this crazy
comb
that's
over. The same kind of thing. It's kind of giving a certain look to this character, this weird comb over thing, and then the other guy is sort of quite a small, much smaller, completely different kind of look to him, and you wouldn't put them together. So again, they're kind of giving an interesting vibe and look to those characters, but it doesn't really, because they're not used a huge amount. Again, it kind of falls by the wayside.
And you never really, I feel like I'm just picking holes in this film now, unfortunately. But you don't, you see one blackmail job. You never really know how that started, or you don't need to know all that stuff, but you only really get the one, and then suddenly you're into them being knocked off. It's just odd, because it is odd, because I think all the cast are great, and they give it what they can. I did find that Peter Gallagher seemed to be sleeping through his role.
Which
he kind of does anyway. That's the character himself.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? It's like, is this just his acting style, or is that the character? But I think, that's how the character is supposed to be, which, again, fine at the start, you kind of, I'll go with this, but it just wears a bit thin after a while.
Just wears a bit thin. But then on the flip side of that, you've got someone like John Lithgow, who's clearly having a whale of a time being who he is in the film. None of them are really playing against type too much. So, but it's an odd one. I mean, I wouldn't say it was terrible, and there were certainly moments in there that, I mean, I think that the gory stuff, like I said, you know, I was thinking, I mean, I'm not great. I'm not so bad with eye stuff. Sometimes, I mean, what's the other famous? Is it zombie?
It's Dead and Buried. There's zombie flesh eaters.
Zombie flesh eaters. That's grim. Yeah, some eye thing. I mean, even Terminator's got an eye thing in it as well. Which this one reminded me a little bit of Terminator, but because he's doing it in the mirror. It's pretty grim, actually, if you don't like eye stuff.
I mean, I wasn't bothered, but
no,
again, it just didn't.
But it's
really
got, I mean, it's got some quite interesting effect. You know, some of the visual stuff.
Yeah,
you know, the gore is quite cool, and the pictures he has, you kind of see fleeting appearances of, look quite. It's almost like they put all their budget into the effects side of it, and had nothing left over for anything else. Just a strange one with a very strange title.
Yeah, the title.
I mean, what's going on with the title? I mean, didn't Jack Black say?
Well, apparently he's quoted as when he turned up on set. You know, he thought it was great to be there, but you know, surely this is just a working title. And they were like, "What do you mean?" So and they kept the title, and then just sort of disappeared. You know, it never got released in cinemas. I don't think it went straight onto cable and DVD. I guess
it is odd because there is only the one. I mean, he's photographing all different types of crime scenes, not just car-related ones.
Yeah, exactly.
The only car-related one is the first one at the beginning. And then there's this other cop, John Lithgow's partner, he's clearly got it in for the guy. Yeah. Because he's the one that calls him Skid. He's like Skidmarks, and you're like.
I mean, I was almost expecting at one point for him to go, "Don't call me that."
But he never,
he doesn't,
because he never engages with anything.
No. Yeah, I mean, you know, it could have stuck with like and been a bit more serious and been like sort of an introspective film about grief and loss and stuff like that, because he's obviously depressed about losing his wife, which is understandable. But it didn't do that. It could have gone, you know, more into the black comedy, which would have worked better, but it didn't do that. It kind of half did it. So it could have gone all out, you know, gore, but it didn't do that. It kind of did a bit. But I think it's like, pick one. So we haven't talked about the music, which I found a little bit odd and out of place sometimes. I mean, it kind of went for that, again, that sort of off-kilter, weird vibe, which, again, if the film had kept that all the way through, then it probably would have fitted it better. But because it didn't, the music sometimes felt a little bit out of place because it wasn't really fitting with what was happening on screen. It also opens with magic moments, which obviously in the UK is synonymous with Quality Street, which is, you know, if you're not in the UK, it's a tub of chocolates
that we eat too much of at this time of year, at Christmas. Yeah.
So yeah, there was a big ad campaign. I don't know if they still use it. I don't think they use it anymore, do they? But definitely in the sort of 80s and 90s, if you heard that come on the TV, it's like, oh, it's Quality Street. So, when the tubs were like that deep and now they're like that deep. So, shrinkflation and all that. Yeah. But, so immediately that's what I was like, oh, it's Quality Street. Which, no, not the fault of the film, because,
No.
But it just kind of immediately was a bit odd.
But it's also, I mean, it's quite an uplifting piece of music.
Well, yeah, that as well, yeah.
And you go into this film that's not, and that's happened many times before, where they, films that are kind of down and slow and brooding use like uplifting music. That happens, and that's fine, but it just didn't kind of. It's just just. And
because it's brought back again towards the end of the film, and it's like, why are you putting it on this scene? I don't really understand what are you trying to convey with this song. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something, but no. Anyway, I didn't hate it.
No,
but I enjoyed parts of it. The performances were okay, they were interesting. I just wish it would have leaned into maybe the weird sort of dark humour vibe, or something, just chosen rather than going all over the place. Pick a lane and stick to it.
So that was Johnny Skidmarks, and as always, so that was Johnny Skidmarks, and as always, if you.
Oh my God!
And sorry. So that was.
Oh God!
So that was Johnny Skidmarks, and as always, if you enjoyed the video, let us know in the comments below.
Hit the subscribe button up there and don't forget to push the bell for notifications. There's other videos to check out either side of us. Come and find us off quick. Go, now. 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
I can't.
So that was Johnny Skidmarks, and as always, if you enjoyed the video, let us know in the comments below.
Hit the subscribe button up there and don't forget to push the bell for notifications. There's other videos to check out either side of us.
Just carry on, it's fine.
There's other videos, for fuck's sake.
Just do the bit and then I'll just
Okay.
cut it in, it's fine.
Hit the subscribe button up there and don't forget to push the bell for notifications. There's other videos to check out either side of us. Come and find us on social media and join us again soon for another video.
That's fine.